Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of the Golden Age. This is our series of Warhammer Fantasy Battle Reports, and this is Battle Report number 64. It is a 3,000 point battle that is fought between my good friend Dark Lord Mac as well as myself. Dark Lord Mac is bringing the Esoteric Order of the Thousand Suns, a 3,000 point Chaos Legion of Tzeentch army, and I'm bringing the Avelorn Guards, a 3,000 point High Elves army. So it's been kind of a while since we've done these Golden Age battle reports. I do apologize on that. My gaming group was really excited to play Warcry that just recently came out, the new skirmish game for the Warhammer Age of Sigmar series of games. And now we're going back to our good old-fashioned Golden Age battle reports, because when it comes down to it, we are 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle guys to the core. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for the armies, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Crom, I've never prayed you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad. Why we fought, or why we died. No. All that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Balor pleases you, Crom. So grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you.
Assemble the army!
Alright, so the scenario for this one is battle line. We have standard deployment as well as standard victory conditions as always. It's the most typical game of Warhammer Fantasy Battle that we love playing. You guys know it and we love playing it. So with that being said, let's go and talk about the battle plan on this one real quick. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 6x4 table. I am deployed on the near side of the board, while my friend Dark Lord Mac is deployed on the far side of the board. And as you can pretty much see, this battle is going to pretty much be concentrating on the flanks. My buddy Dark Lord Mac is pretty much kind of mirror imaging my deployment zone as well. He's got his fast movers on the left as well as right hand flanks, and I have exactly the same thing on mine as well. The difference though is that my cavalry is all located on the left hand side, while my artillery is on the right hand side. He has Chaos Knights on the left hand side, and he has his Chaos Demons, which are flyers, as well as the Megalith Vortex Beasts over on the right hand side with his Demon Prince. So pretty much what my plan is trying to kind of sweep to the left with my using my cavalry forces. Hopefully I can destroy his cavalry as well as his lighter infantry forces on the left hand side, and then have them converge on the core of his army where all of his infantry forces are located and at the same time try to coordinate a charge forward with my center forces, so that way I can catch him in a envelopment, so that way I can defeat him that way by flanking him as well as taking him from the front as well. Pretty much my job is to take out his fast movers like his demons as well as his Demon Prince with my bolt throwers, and that's pretty much kind of the tactic I'm going with on this one. So with the battle plan over with, let's go and talk about deployment real fast. Alright, so starting with deployment for the High Elves. Over here on the right hand side are the Falling Leaves of Avelorn. This is my unit of 3 Eagle Claw bolt throwers, Lothar and Eagle Claw bolt throwers. They're located right there on the top of the hill there. They have a good line of sight of across the entirety of the battlefield, and they can also sweep across his main battle line as well. Alright, so for my center lines is where all my infantry forces are deployed. On the left hand side, that is the Everqueen's Rangers. That is a unit of 15 White Lions of Trace. They're equipped with great weapons as well as heavy armor and White Lion cloaks. They also have the Banner of Eternal Flame. They also have a standard bearer as well as a musician in that unit, and that unit is dedicated to monster hunting. That's what I use those guys primarily for. In the center, those are the Ever Wardens. That is my core of my infantry forces. That is a unit of 25 Phoenix Guards with standard bearer as well as a musician. Those guys are equipped with heavy armor as well as halberds, and they also have a 4 ward save, which makes them a really deadly infantry choice as well. They're also carrying the War Banner too to give them +1 to their combat res as well. And on the right hand side, that is the Lore Master's Blades. That is a unit of 19 Sword Masters of Hoeth with standard bearer as well as musician. Also leading them is Teclis. That is my special character, who's also a level 5 wizard. He's a Lore Master. He's got the Lore of High Magic as well. And also in the Lore Master's Blades, I also have these Razor Standard of these guys as well, giving them armor piercing. So that way they actually have -3 to armor saves when they hit because of their great weapons. Right behind them is the Dawn Guard. That is a unit of 23 Lothar and Sea Guard. Those guys are equipped with light armor, shields, as well as spears, and they also have normal bows. And leading them is Tanis Laenel, Captain of the Dawn Guard. He's a Lothar and Sea Helm. He's got light armor, a shield, as well as a spear and bow. And he's also packing the standard discipline as well, so these guys have +1 to leadership. And that pretty much makes up my center deployment. On the left-hand side of my main battle line, that is the Sunrunner. It is a Terranok chariot with 2 crew members with spears as well as longbows. Right next to them is the unit called the Silver Sentinels. It consists of 9 silver helms, and this unit actually has full command. They have a champion as well as a musician and standard bearer as well. They got barding, heavy armor, shields, lances, and hand weapons, and leading them is my General Tyrion, the special character, who's got Sunfang, the dragon armor of Venarion, as well as the Heart of Avelorn. He's also riding Malhelndir, his giant warhorse. And that pretty much makes it my cavalry forces here on the left-hand side. And finally, on the far left-hand side of the battlefield, using a 12-inch Vanguard movement beyond my deployment zone, those guys are the Silent Striders. There's a unit of 10 Illyrian Reavers. They have a musician as well as standard bearer. They got spears, bows, light armor, as well as shields. And these guys are deployed 12 inches forward because using the Vanguard rules as well. And that pretty much makes it my deployment for this battle report. So up next, we're talking about my man, Dark Lord Mac, and his deployment. Over on the left-hand side, these guys are the Second Sons. It is a unit of 10 Chaos Knights of Tzeentch. They got musician as well as standard bearer. They also mounting Chaos Steeds with barding. They got Chaos armor and shields. They're also packing a source of weapons. So these guys have +1 to their strength on a constant basis. These guys also have the War Banner as well, giving them +1 to their combat resolution. And to the right of them, of course, are 2 Chaos Spawns. The flesh-colored one, that's called the Rubicon. It is a Chaos Spawn of Tzeentch with Flaming Breath Attack, which is what I'm really afraid of. And on the right-hand side of him is the Eremite, which is another Chaos Spawn as Tzeentch. He's also equipped exactly the same thing with Fiery Breath as well. And that's another one kind of worried about because even though their Breath of Weapon is only strength 3, I am High Elves, so I'm about as tough as a piece of wet tissue paper, and that'll just light me on fire if they manage to hit me with those breath attacks. And that pretty much makes up his left-hand deployment. Alright, so for his center deployments, where a majority of his forces are located, in the back left-hand corner, that is Skeksis of Dark Crystals. That is an exalted hero of Tzeentch. He's got a flail. He's also got chaos armor as well. He's also got a chanted shield, giving +1 to his armor save. He's also got the Talisman of Preservation and Third Eye of Tzeentch, and he's also riding a Disc of Tzeentch. So this guy is a fast mover. He's also got rerollable 1 ward saves of 3 up. That means he only fails only 1/6 of his ward save. He rolls a 2. So that's actually a pretty deadly guy right there as well. Right in front of him, those guys are the Dunwich Horrors. It is a unit of 10 pink horrors of Tzeentch with musician as well as standard bearer, and these guys are packing the blue fire of Tzeentch. Right in the center there in the front, that is one of his exalted flamers of Tzeentch. The pink one, that is the Rune of Zarnath. That guy is a exalted flamer of Tzeentch, so those guys have really good shooting attacks. Right next to him, the blue one is an exalted flamer of Tzeentch. His name is the Quest of Iranon. And right behind them, that is the unit called the Stormlords. It is a huge unit of 30 Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch. They have full command, marks of Tzeentch, Chaos armor, shields, as well as halberds. So that unit's going to be a really tough nut to crack because those guys are kitted to kill. On the right-hand side, those guys are called the Red Hook Horrors. Those are a unit of 10 pink horrors of Tzeentch with musician as well as standard bearer. And those guys are also packing the blue fire of Tzeentch. And right behind them, that is Skrakalikos, the Warden of Pathways. That is a Demon Prince of Tzeentch, who's also their general. He's level 4 Lore of Metal. He's got Demonic Flight as well as Chaos armor. And he's packing the Sword of Striking, Charm Shield, Dragonbane Gem. He's got a Chaos Familiar, Scaly Skin, as well as the Soul Feeder and a Partridge in a Pear Tree, because that guy is pretty much kitted out to kill. So I am really terrified of that very tanky Demon Prince as Tzeentch build that's going on over there on the right-hand side. Alright, so finally on the far right-hand side, we have his fast movers. These are all demons of Tzeentch for the most part. On the left-hand side, those are 3 screamers of Tzeentch called the Colors Out of Space. Right in the center, that is the Shadow over Innsmouth, which is a mutilated vortex beast. And to the right-hand side, those are the Haunters of the Dark, another unit of 3 screamers of Tzeentch. So my buddy actually has quite a bit of units for a Chaos Warrior, Chaos Legion of Tzeentch army. He's actually got a lot of fast movers as well, and a lot of small little units too. So that part was actually pretty crazy to see. So with the deployment over with, you go directly to the top at turn number 1, and Dark Lord Mac and I roll off for initiative to see who will be going first. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the High Elves and manage to get the initiative in this battle report. So this photo is taken after the movement phase. As you can see, for the most part, I really didn't do any moving whatsoever. All of my forces pretty much stay exactly where they are. I'm High Elves, and it's actually behooves me to actually stay exactly where I'm at. It's actually to my advantage to make my opponent advance across the battlefield and come to me. And the reason why is because if I move my cavalry forces too close, they could be countercharged by my opponent, which would be bad, because it's always a bad thing to have cavalry being charged. You never want to be charged as cavalry. You want to do the one doing the charging. So I keep them exactly located as well. It doesn't make any sense for my infantry forces to move forward either, so I keep them exactly where they're located at, and obviously my bolt throwers can't move because that way they can shoot. The only real movement I do over is on the left-hand side with my Silent Striders. I actually march them up forward, their maximum moon allowance of 18 inches, and have them tuck up to the top left-hand corner. That way they can get a good flank or rear charge off on those Chaos Knights, and also do some shooting as well, and try to will them down a little bit. And that pretty much makes it my movement phase for this one. And here's a close-up of the Silent Striders, which is the only movement I actually did, and the reason why I did that is so that way I can either do a flank or rear charge in those Chaos Knights, and maybe if I'm really lucky, plink off one or two with some longbow, with some bow fire from those guys as well. And that pretty much makes up the movement phase. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And during the magic phase, it's actually kind of a weak magic phase. I didn't really get many power dice, so the one spell I was able to get off, though, was the Tempest. I put it directly right in the center between the pink Horrors of Tzeentch of the red hook Horrors. It scatters, I think, 3 inches to the bottom left is what I ended up doing, so I managed to clip 2 Screamers from the colors out of space, as well as 4 Horrors from the red hook Horrors as well, and those guys take strength 3 hits for the Horrors and strength 4 hits for the Screamers, because the Screamers are flying units. But unfortunately for me, though, I wasn't able to do anything to these guys because my buddy Darklord Mag made his ward saves no problem. So, you know, best of luck on all that. So like I said, magic phase is actually kind of weak sauce on this turn. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, I concentrate fire with all 3 bolt throws from the falling leaves of Avelorn directly into the shadow over Innsmouth, and I managed to kill that Mutilith Vortex Beast and just one-shot him off the table, which is pretty nice as well. All 3 of my bolts managed to hit. I believe 2 of them caused 6 wounds. I believe the other one caused 1 wound, which was more than enough to push him over the edge. He wasn't able to ward save it, so because of that, the Mutilith Vortex Beast is now riddled with giant spears and has died a very woeful and painful death, which is appropriate because that thing is absolutely terrifying. So with the shooting phase over with, we skip the combat phase and we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Chaos Legion of Tzeentch. So we're right out of the bottom of turn number 1 for the Chaos Legion of Tzeentch, and this is after the movement phase, and as you can see, my opponent Darklord Mac actually moved up the Esoteric Order of 1,000 Suns kind of gingerly for the most part. He fully committed his movement on the right hand flank, march flying his Screamers, both the colors out of space as well as the Haunters of the Dark, moving them about 20 inches across the battlefield, just barely make it to the foot of that hill where my Avelorn, Falling Leaves of Avelorn are located at, which is actually kind of terrifying as well. He also marches up his 2, the Quests of Sarnath as well as the Doom of Aranon. He actually moves up his 2 Exalted Flamers as well, right behind those Screamers around that tower, so that we can lend some long-range shooting. He also flies up his General, Skarakalikos, the Warden of Pathways, directly into the top of the tower as well. For his infantry forces, he did march up his 2 units of Horrors, so the Red Hook Horrors as well as the Dunwich Horrors move up forward, I think 8 inches, so that way they can get closer to my battle lines, using the forces to the left as well as the tower to the right to protect their flanks. And I believe he only moves up his Chaos Warriors, the Stormlords, only up their normal 4-inch movement allowance, and that's because I believe it's because he's trying to keep pace with his Horrors in order to keep his flanks protected. At the same time, he also only moves up his Chaos Knights for the Second Sons. They only move up their normal 8 inches forward as well. On the left-hand corner, though, that's where some dramatic movement took place. He actually had to do random movement for both of his Chaos Spawns, so he had no control over it. I believe one moved up 8 inches, while the other one moved up 9 inches, if I remember correctly. And he also march flew his Exalted Hero, the Skexes of Dark Crystals, right directly at the top of the hill, and those 3 guys are moving to the far left hand and intercept my Illyrian Reavers. And that pretty much makes it the move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of Skexes of Dark Crystal as well as the Eremite and the Rubicon moving up quickly as they can in order to intercept my Illyrian Reavers. At the same time, there's a beautiful shot of his Second Sons also moving up as well, getting ready to set up a charge directly into my Silver Sentinels. And here's a close-up of the Stormlords as well as the Dunwich Horrors and the Red Hook Horrors moving up as quickly as they can down the middle towards my main battle line. And here's a close-up of his general, Skarakalikos, the Warden of Pathways, flying to the top of the tower, as well as the Rune of Sarnath, as well as the Quest of Iranon, moving as quickly as they can across the battlefield, marching at 12 inches in order to catch up with the rest of the fast movers, heading towards my artillery pieces on the far right-hand flank. And finally, here's a close-up of his Screamers of Tzeentch march flying across the battlefield. Those are the colors out of space as well as the Hunter of the Dark. And those guys are moving as quickly as they can directly towards my Falling Leaves of Avelorn. And if I don't deal with those Screamers pretty quick, those Screamers are going to eat my artillery crews alive. So I really got to, do some quick thinking on that part. As for the rest of the turn, the magic phase was pretty much a wash. I was able to dispel all of his spells, so he didn't get anything off, which is one of the nice reasons of having tech lists being in your army. And since he also marched all of his forces, there is no shooting and there is no close combat, so we go right back to the top of turn number 2 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 2 for the High Elves, and this photo is taken after the movement phase, and as you can see in this photo, I decided to advance forward and start taking the fight to my opponent. The first thing I do is I declare a charge with the Sunrunner as well as with my Silver Sentinels, and both those units made their charge all the way across the battlefield directly into the Second Sun. So now the Second Sons have to deal with a chariot hitting in the front as well as Tyrion as his 9 Silver Helms smashing the front as well. The reason why I committed those guys is because at this point I need to, because if I don't commit these guys, I'm going to get charged at the next turn anyway. anyways, and like I said, it's always best to be the one charging when you're dealing with cavalry forces. So I charge directly into the Second Sons. The only thing I got to worry about though is that the Second Sons always have that +1 strength for their ensorcelled weapons, so even though they didn't charge, they still get that bonus, whereas me, I only have lances, so I only have my +2 strength bonus on the charge right the first round of combat, so I'm going to have to break these guys as quick as I can in order to make that happen. For the rest of the movement phase, I actually marched back my Silent Striders and marched them back 18 inches back from the left-hand corner and set them in such a way so that way I could charge the left-hand flank of the Second Sons if need be. So that way I can dodge Skeksis of Dark Crystal, as well as the the two Chaos Spawn over there, the Eremite, as well as the Rubicon. So that way I don't have to worry about those guys smashing into my light cavalry choices there. Meanwhile, in the center of my army, I decided to march up my forces kind of quickly is what I ended up doing. First of all, I actually marched up the Everqueen's Rangers, their full 10 inches, out of the forest directly into the middle of the battlefield. Now, you might be thinking that's kind of a suicidal move to put my White Lions right in the middle of all that demonic and Chaos Warrior goodness that's coming out my way. The reason why I did that is because I'm planning on casting the large boosted version of Hand of Glory off on those guys. My plan here is this: if I can cast off the Hand of Walk Between Worlds, that's the spell. If I manage to get that spell off on my White Lions, I'll be able to teleport them across the battlefield directly into the left-hand or right-hand flank of the Stormlords. And if that's the case, I could charge them in the flank, hit them where it hurts, do some mad chopping skills onto those guys, and hopefully cause a lot of damage at the same time. That also buys me some time for my cavalry to kind of catch up and charge on the left-hand side as well. That's the scheme there. At the same time, I also moved my Phoenix Guard as well as my Lordmaster's Blades. I set up my Lordmaster's Blades to go after the Screamers, so that way they can charge directly to those guys if they decide to go after my Bolt Throwers. At the same time, I also positioned my Everwardens in such a way so that way they can make a tempting target for his general Kalikos, the Warden of Pathways. Hopefully what ends up happening is that he won't go after the flanks of my Swordmasters. He'll either go after my Phoenix Guard or, you know, I hate to say it, but or go after my Dawn Guard guys, which are located on the bottom of the screen as well. I move those guys up 5 inches so that way they can start taking pot shots with their bows directly to those pink horrors. Now, it would be sad if those guys do get destroyed because my Battle Standard Bearer is located in that unit as well, but at the same time, that's a unit I am comfortable with losing because they don't actually have that many points associated to them, while I'm a little bit more concerned about my Bolt Throwers because those guys are my killers in my army. And that pretty much makes the move phase on this one. Alright, so here's a close-up of the Silent Striders as well as the Sunrunner and the Silver Sentinels with Tyrion charging directly into the Second Sons. And I'm really excited to see how that combat goes because I do get D6 +1 Strength 4 hits with my Chariot, so I'm really excited to see exactly how that goes with the impact. I'm sorry, not Strength 4, Strength 5 hits. And plus I got Strength 5 hits for my Silver Elm Knights, and plus Tyrion is also Beast in close combat as well, so I'm really excited to see how that one goes. And here's a close-up of my Everqueen's Rangers moving as quick as they can towards the main battle lines of the Esoteric Order of the Thousand Suns, going on a kamikaze suicide mission. But if I can get that Walk Between Worlds spell off, it'll be well worth it because I can catch my opponent in the flank or in the rear and actually start whittling down that huge unit of Chaos Warriors. And here's a close-up of my Dawn Guard getting ready to open fire with their longbows directly into the pink horrors, as well as the Everwardens protecting their right-hand flank. And here's a close-up of the Lordmaster Blades, as well as the Falling Leaves of Avelorn, getting ready to take on these Screamers and hopefully be able to shoot these guys out of the skies. And that pretty much makes up my movement phase on this one. So with the movement phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And in the magic phase, I actually had a pretty powerful magic phase this time around. I actually cashed off the huge version of Soul Quench directly onto the core the colors out of space. Managed him with 4d6 strength 4 hits, which is pretty awesome as well. I think I managed to get, I think it was 16, not 16 hits. It was a 16 or 15. I forgot. I managed to get 15 or 16 hits off on those guys. So because of that, the killers of the space, those guys just atomized because I opened up with that huge magic missile spell directly into them, which was pretty epic as well. And also netting some victory points for me at the same time. I also cast Uncanny Unforging off on Kalikos, the Warden of Pathways, but my buddy Dark Lord Max saw what he was trying to do, so he stopped that spell from going off. And it took the remainder of my power dice to launch off the boosted version of Walk Between Worlds off of my Everqueen's Rangers, which I managed to get. So because of that, those guys move up 20 inches as if they were ethereal. They move through the Dunwich Horrors directly to the left-hand flank of the Stormlords. So now I got a perfect left-hand flank charge on these guys, and I could deal with those guys and tie them up for a round to buy my infantry forces some time. And that pretty much makes up the magic phase on this one. And at the same time, also giving a ward 5-up ward save for my Lordmaster's Blades because of the Shield of Sapphire ability. So that part is also kind of cool as well. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. So in the shooting phase, I concentrate fire with 2 of my Falling Leaves of Avelorn, using multiple shots directly into the Haunters of the Dark. That last 3-man unit of Screamers, I managed to kill all those guys to the last man, so that part was kind of nice. And then I also take my last of my Bolt Thors, my Falling Leaves of Avelorn. I actually have them target directly into the pink horrors from the Dunwich horrors in order to shoot those guys a multiple shot as well. And if you're wondering what that little 5 die right there, right next to my Sword Masters are, that one is to represent the fact that those guys have a 5 reward save because of the lore attribute of the Lore of High Magic. At the same time, I also concentrate fire with the Dawn Guard, as well as my 3rd Falling Leaves of Avelorn directly into the Dunwich Horrors, and managed to pop 7 of those guys right off the bat. So that part is kind of cool, leaving only 3 of those Dunwich Horrors left alive, which is pretty awesome, all things considering. The only thing that's sad, though, is that these guys are unbreakable, so I don't have to worry about taking panic checks, but you know what? I'll take what I can get at this point, so that part was pretty cool. And if you can believe it, I also concentrated fire with my Illyrian Reavers from the Silent Striders directly into Skeksis of Dark Crystals. Managed to shoot that guy. Managed to actually cause 1 wound on him as well. So this guy is 2/3 of the way dead. So he's got 2 more wounds left, which is always awesome because this guy only fails 1/6 of his board saves. So I gotta do as much as I can to whittle this guy down before he causes any damage for any of my troops. And that pretty much makes it the shooting phase on this one. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, it was all glorious in the combat phase. Well, actually, only partially glorious. I should take that back. My Charioteer, unfortunate for them, though, my Terranic Chariot didn't do anything against these guys. Unfortunately, I think only 2 of my impact hits actually wounded, and the 2 that did wound were actually ward saved by the Marcus Tzeentch. My buddy rolled Snake Eyes, not Snake Eyes, he rolled Boxcars on that one, so that was actually pretty crazy. So not much really happened there. However, the combat between the Chaos Knights as well as the Silver Sentinels was completely one-sided. As you can see in this photo, I think I killed 6. Yeah, what ended up happening is I killed 6 of the Chaos Knights, and I also killed one of their one of the Chaos Champion that was leading this unit as well. His Chaos Champion has to declare a challenge because, of course, he has to because Eye of the Gods. Tyrion actually answered the call, and I managed to destroy that guy, which is using his normal attacks from Sunfang, so that part was pretty epic. I also unleashed his Breath Weapon onto these guys as well, and between the Breath Weapon as well as the combined attacks of my Silver Helm Knights, managed to kill 7 of these guys right off the bat. Unfortunately for my opponent, though, he wasn't able to cause any damage. He directed all of his attacks directly into Tyrion, but Tyrion was able to weather the blows on that one, so it was a armor save all of his attacks, so that part was pretty epic as well. So because of that, I actually ended up with a combat result of 7 from killing his unit as well. I also get a charge going into it as well, bringing my total to 8. I have a rank as well, bringing it to 9. He has a battle stand, the war banner, so he does have 1 for that as well as 1 point for a standard bearer, but that's all that ends up happening, giving a combat result of 6, which means that these guys now are all leadership 2. So because of that, he has to roll to see exactly if he breaks or not. Unfortunately, the Second Sons failed their first roll as well as their second roll, so because of that, you have to flee. They think I flew back 9 inches, I believe is what it was, and so because of that, the Sunrider chased them down. I think he ran for 10 inches, so because of that, he runs down and chops the last of the Second Sons as well, and he actually overruns directly into the Rubicon as well, that Chaos Spawn that's located over there as well. So because of that, he is now engaged in close combat. I do a quick combat reform with my Silverhelm Knights to tuck them over to the right-hand side, so that way they can charge directly into the Pink Horrors and hopefully into the front of the Stormlords. And that pretty much makes it combat over here on the left-hand side of the battlefield. So with combat over with, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Chaos Legion. So that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Chaos Legion. As you can see here, this movement phase is taken after the movement phase, and the Esoteric Order of the Thousand Suns actually do some pretty dramatic movement. The first thing that he does, he actually declares a charge with his general. So because of that, Squircali Cost, the Ward of Pathways, goes flying across the battlefield directly into my Dawn Guard, which was pretty tragic. That was the one thing I was hoping wouldn't happen, but he did. Because I have a Sea Helm leading that unit, I do take a leadership test. Because of that, they do form up into ranks, so I make them 6 wide as well as 4 deep, so that way they can maximize the rank bonuses. And luckily for my guys, they also pass their terror check as well as their fear check, so they're perfectly fine. The only problem is, though, they don't have any really high strength attacks directly to Squircali Cost, so that part is pretty rough. At the same time, he also declares a charge with the remainder of his Dunwich Horrors. Those 3 pink horrors charge directly into my Silverhelm Knights, so my Silver Sentinels are now currently engaged. He also charges forward with Skeksis Dark Crystal directly into the left-hand flank of the Sunrunner. And he also random moves up the Eremite as well, who manages to get enough speed in order to charge directly into the front of the Sunrunner too. So because of that, my chariot is now facing 2 Chaos Spawn as well as Exalted Hero. I have no illusions that Sunrunner chariot is going to die. I mean, it's just that simple. And meanwhile, my opponent also marches up his Red Hook Horrors, moving them up 10 inches forward, and he also does exactly the same thing. No, sorry, not exactly the same thing. He actually only moves up both the Quest of Aranon as well as the Rune of Sarnath, his 2 Exalted Flamers. He just moves up the normal 6 inches, so that way they can do some shooting as well. And he also does a swift reform with his Stormlords, facing over the left-hand side to face down my Everqueen's Rangers. So that part is pretty cool as well. And that pretty much makes him a move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of the move phase in the far left-hand corner with Skexes of Dark Crystals as well as the Eremite and the Rubicon charging directly into my Sunrunner. So I have no illusions that that chariot is going to die. But that's okay though, I'm willing to take the loss on that one. He's only worth 70 points, so I'm not too worried about that. And here's a close-up of the Dunwich Horrors charging directly into my Silver Sentinels, and I'm not too worried about that one either because I have no problem wiping those guys off the planet because, after all, Tyrion is in this unit, so I have nothing to worry about there. And finally, here's a close-up of Skorkalikos, the Warden of Pathways, charging directly into the Dawn Guard as well. And I actually made an error on this one. I do apologize. The Dunwich Horrors, with the Red Hook Horrors, those 10 pink horrors in the center of the battlefield, I actually made a mistake there. What they did try to do, they tried to charge directly into my Dawn Guards. What they tried to do. Unfortunately, though, he failed the roll, and they only moved 5 inches forward. That's what ended up happening for those guys. So I do apologize for that mistake. At the same time, you can see the top right-hand corner as well. You see his 2 Exalted Flamers, the Rune of Sarnath, as well as a quest for Iranon. Those guys are moving up forward in order to do some shooting with some wonderful Warp Flame from Dolores Tzeentch. In the magic phase, my opponent did try to get off a couple of his spells. He tried to get Final Transmutation off, but I managed to stop that spell. However, he was able to get Plague of Rust off onto my Lore Master's Blade, so because of that, they all suffer -1 to their weapon skill, Blitz's skill, as well as to their armor save. So that part's kind of rough. But at the same time, though, I do have a 5 of ward save, so that is kind of helping out. So, you know, you can't win them all, I guess. So, and that was the only spell he's able to get off, too, which is also pretty awesome. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And yes, as weird as that may sound, the Chaos Forces do have a shooting phase in this battle report. He actually targets my Lore Master's Blades with both of his Exalted Flamers using the Blue Fire Sneetch ability for those guys. Basically acts like grape shot rules from cannons. So he rolls his 2 artillery dice, actually managed to get 12 hits off directly onto my Lord Master's Blades, which is actually kind of rough. In the end, I lost 6 of those guys, which is pretty tragic. I would have lost a lot more had it not been for my 5 of ward save, though. I was actually rolling that out of the box, so I got pretty lucky on that part. So because I do have to take a panic check, and luckily for me, though, my guys pass their panic check no problem because I play High Elves and High Elves don't break. So with the shooting phase over with, we'll go directly to the combat phase. In the combat phase, on the left-hand side of the battlefield, the Sunrunner gets torn to pieces by the Eremite as well as the Rubicon and Skexes of Dark Crystals, and those guys take a combat reform to look at the left-hand flank of my Silver Sentinels. Meanwhile, Tyrion was able to just single-handedly wipe out the last 3 of the Dunwich Horrors, so that part was pretty easy as well, and sets me up to open up a charge directly into the Stormlords, which is also pretty awesome. And sadly, combat between Skorkalikos, the Warden of Pathways, and my Dawn Guard did not go very well at all. In the end, he was able to kill 6 of my Dawn Guard Lothern Sea Guards, so that part was pretty rough as well. To be perfectly honest, though, I think my opponent kind of flubbed his rolls a little bit. He decided not to go after my Battle Standard Bearer. He decided to concentrate on my forces instead, and I think the reason why he did that is so that way he can cause maximum casualties on these guys. I think he was trying to go for it in order to wound those guys up. I think what his plan was to actually cause enough injuries for me to actually have to take a break test and he can finish me off by running me down. But unfortunately, though, he kind of flubbed his attack rolls. I think he managed to kill 1 guy with his close combat attacks, and I believe the other 5 came from Thunder Stomping is what ended up happening for that one. So because of that, I lose by 6. So he has a charge. He also causes 6 wounds as well. However, I do have 2 ranks that drops my score down to 4, and I also have a Battle Standard Bearer in my unit as well as a Standard Bearer, so it only drops me down to 2. So because of that, I only have to worry about rolling a leadership, I believe, of 8 is what I actually have to do. And needless to say, my guys passed their leadership 8 roll, so because of that, they completely stand their ground directly against Skorkalikos, the Warden of Pathways. And I tie him up for another round of combat as well. And that pretty much rounds up the combat for this one. So with the combat phase over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 3 for the High Elves, and this photo is taken directly after the move phase, and as you can see in this photo, I decided to commit my forces and to continue the fight at this point. And this is where I kind of get my coordinated strike off over the center of the battlefield. The first thing I do is I declare a charge with my Silent Striders, my 10 Lyrian Reavers. I charge directly into Skeksis of Dark Crystals because I want to make sure that that guy doesn't charge directly to the back of either of my charging forces in the center of the battlefield. I also charge in the Everqueen's Ranger to the front of the Stormlords. At the same time, I charge directly into the left-hand flank with the Silver Sentinels as well as Tyrion, catching those guys in a nice little pincer attack and getting those guys enveloped. At the same time, I also declare a charge with the Everwardens and charge directly into the Quest of Iranon, which is one of the this is the blue Exalted Flamer Tzeentch, and I also march up the Lord Master's Blades around the Everwardens directly in front of the Ruin of Sarnath, so that way I can charge directly into that Exalted Flamer as well. And that pretty much makes up my move phase on this one. So here's a close-up of my Lyrian Reavers from the Silent Striders, charging directly into Skeksis of Dark Crystals because I need to really take care of that guy, because if I don't take care of him, he can really mess up my plans in the center of the battlefield by rear charging either my White Lions or my Silver Helms, and I don't want that to happen. And here's a beautiful close-up shot of my Everqueen's Rangers as well as my Silver Sentinels getting a pincer attack off on the Stormlords as well, which is pretty awesome. So I got heavy hitters hitting them from the front, I got heavy hitters hitting them from the right, and I also have my character Tyrion right there as well to cause all kinds of close combat goodness as well. So I'm really looking forward to that combat. Here's a close of my Darnguard going directly against Skokalikos, the Warden of Pathways, and they're still engaged with that guy as well. These guys are not long for the world because Lothar and Seaguard don't really stand a chance against a monstrous Demon Prince. And here's a close-up of my Everwardens charging directly into the Quest of Iranon, as well as Lord Master's Blades direct themselves in front of the Ruin of Sarnath, getting ready to charge that guy as well. And that pretty much makes up the move phase on this one. So the move phase over with, we go directly to the magic phase. And in the magic phase, I managed to wipe out the Ruin of Sarnath, the Quest of Iranon, which is the last of the Exalted Flamers of Tzeentch. Managed to kill that guy pretty well. I actually had a pretty powerful magic phase. Got 11 dice on this one, so that part was kind of cool. I originally started off with Drain Magic in order to remove the Plague of Rust hex that was put directly onto Lord Master's Blade, so I got rid of that. At the same time, I also managed to cast the boosted version of Soul Quench directly onto the Quest of Iranon, so because that managed to wipe that guy off the face of the planet, which is pretty cool as well. Just getting that guy being ripped apart by Kane's Fury on that one, which is pretty cool. There's also netted me a 5 award save for my Lord Masters of Blades, which is also pretty handy to have as well. And that pretty much makes the magic phase on this one. So with the magic phase over with, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, I concentrate fire with all 3 bolt throwers from the Falling Leaves of Avelorn directly into the Red Hook Horrors, and I managed to kill all 10 of those horrors down to the last man, which is actually pretty awesome. So that part was pretty glorious as well. So with the shooting phase over with, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, my Silent Striders had no problem whatsoever wiping out Skeksis of Dark Crystals. It was just a matter of having 10 Illyrian Reavers versus 1 Exalted Hero is pretty much what ended up happening. Math was in my favor in this case. So because I was able to kill him, and since I charged into him and killed him, I got to overrun as well. They overran, I think, 11 inches forward, so because of that, they charged directly into both the Eremite as well as the Rubicon, so I could tie up those Chaos Spawn, so that way they don't, try to, countercharge my forces in the middle of the battlefield. So that part was pretty epic. And in the center of the battlefield, oh my god, combat in the center of the battlefield was crazy. It was all kinds of death taking place right here in the center of the battlefield. First off, I get to attack first with Tyrion as well as my Silverhelm Knights because they have the higher initiative on this one. Unfortunately, my Silver Sentinels didn't do very much, actually. They only managed to kill 3 of the Stormlords, which is kind of sad. And same thing with Tyrion. Tyrion only was able to kill 2 of the Stormlords as well. Managed to kill 5 of those Chaos Warriors all by themselves, which is pretty lackluster considering how many Silverhelms are in that unit, as well as the fact they got a special character in them. However, the real champions in this though was my Everqueen's Rangers. Those guys hi-hoed with their axes and managed to kill 9 members of the Stormlords all by them lonesome, which is pretty awesome. And the reason why they're able to do that is because they also have Martial Valor, which means they could fight in additional ranks. So all 3 ranks of 15 White Lions are just chopping down Chaos Warriors like it's going out of style. So that part was kind of nice. My opponent decided to concentrate all of his attacks from the Stormlords directly into the White Lions of Trace for my Everqueen's Rangers. In the end, he managed to kill 6 of my Everqueen's Rangers as well, which is kind of sad, but at the same time, I am playing High Elves. High Elves are not exactly known for their toughness. They're a glass cannon army. They can dish out the punishment, but they can't take it, so because of that part was kind of sad as well. Needless to say, I won combat on this one, no problem. So for my White Lions of Trace, I killed 9 of the warriors. They killed 6 of mine, so because of that, it gives me a combat result of 3. They have 2 ranks beyond that, so it drops me down to 1, a combat result of 1, and they also have a war banner, which means that my combat result is, basically at 0. However, I charge with these guys, so that gives me a +1 to do my charge. And I also have a standard bearer in these guys as well, giving me actually a combat result of 2 on that part, which is really, really cool. Unfortunately for my opponent, though, he managed to pass a panic just for that one, so they're unable to go. However, the one that really put the kicker in, though, was my flank charge. So I charged forward, gave me a +1 bonus for that. I also have a standard bearer in this unit, give me a +1 for that as well. And I also have ranks as well, so it gives me another point, and a flank charge that gives me a bonus of 4. And I also killed 5 guys as well, which gives me a grand total of 9 combat result. And because they're also kind of disrupted as well, they can't use that bonus against me. So because of that, they do have to take a break test at -9, which is actually way, way, way in my favor. So my opponent breaks, he runs back 10 inches, I pursue, I think 12 inches what I end up doing, so I run down that entire unit of Stormlords and chop those guys to the last man. That does make my Silver Elm Knights actually fly off the edge of the table with that 12 inches, but at this point though, it's not much of a bother because mission accomplished, I kill that huge unit of Chaos Warriors down to the last man, so it's well worth the risk. Meanwhile, combat over here on the other side of the table between my Dawn Guard as well as Skokalikos, the Warden of Pathways. When it was all said and done, he managed to kill 6 more of my Lothern Sea Guards, so that part was kind of rough. And I actually do cause a wound onto him as well, so that part was kind of nice as a little bit of a bonus in that. But like I said before, my opponent's attacks kind of flubbed this one. I think 4 of his attacks actually came from his Thunderstops. I was only able to kill 2 of my warriors with his normal fighting, but the Thunderstop was the one that really actually caused all the damage. So he ends up with a combat result of 6. I still have a rank, so that drops it down to 5. I also got a standard and a standard bearer. That brings me down to 3, and plus a cause of wounds, so it brings down his combat result of 2. So once again, my leadership score is 8. And just like last time, because of that combat result, leadership test of 8, I managed to pass my leadership test, no problems. And so because that, my Dawn Guard are still around for another turn, facing down this demonic prince all by themselves. And finally, my Everwardens were able to destroy what was left of the ruin of the quest of the Ruin of Sarnath, that's his name. Managed to kill that Exalted Flavor, no problem, my Everwardens, so that part was kind of cool. And because I do a combat reform real quick during 180, so that way they can march back and start dealing with Skokalikos, the Warden of Pathways. And as at this point of the battle report, my decided buddy Dark Lord Matt decides to call the game because the only thing he has left is his Demonic Prince as well as 2 Chaos Spawns, so he decides to concede the game at this point, netting another victory for Commander CheapSkate. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go directly to the After Action Report because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright folks, now it's time for the After Action Report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle. This is the After Action Report for the Golden Age Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report number 64, and this one being a victory for yours truly. I managed to walk away with 2,835 victory points, while Dark Lord Mac only got 70 points. For my losses, I lost the Sunrunner, however Dark Lord Mac lost Skeksis of Dark Crystals, the Ruin of Sarnath, the Quest of Iranon, the Stormlords, the Dunwich Horrors, the Red Hook Horrors, the Colors Out of Space, the Hunters of the Dark, the Second Sons, as well as the Shadow over Innsmouth. And I have to be perfectly honest, it has been way too long since I played Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and in fact, I was really missing playing this game, and to be quite frank, this game reminds me of why I love this game so much. I'm going to say right off the bat, I don't care that the 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle is dead, I don't care that the old world is no more. I love this game, and I will always play it no matter what happens, because this game is amazing, and to me is the truest version of Warhammer that exists. In addition, I'm also playing with my very first army I've ever collected, which is High Elves. I've actually been playing High Elves ever since I was a little kid, way back when 4th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battle first rolled out. I loved them as a kid, and I still love them now, which is pretty awesome. High Elves are an elite, hard-hitting army, but the only thing you gotta worry about when it comes to this army is you can't stand out, and you have to strike quickly and move quickly, because if you try to do a overwhelm your opponent with a knockout, drag out kind of fight, you're just not gonna last, because High Elves are not very resilient, and they die like, really bad when you start fighting against them. So that's one of the reasons why I love High Elves. These guys hit hard, they move quickly, they're glass cannons, and it's a fun army to play. And the reason why Dark Lord Matt lost his battle is because his forces, in my opinion, were too thinly spread out. He was trying to protect his flanks, and so because of that, he deployed his army with this really long line formation. And what that did, it actually left his center very vulnerable, so because of that, I was able to exploit that weakness, because once his center fell, the rest of his army just kind of fell apart at that point. I think the next time, what he should do next time is concentrate his forces more, and I think that will make him more of a wrecking ball of destruction by using his small units to protect his flanks and just concentrate him to like one giant blob. And I actually think this could actually do a lot more for him as well. With that being said, though, this was still an amazing game against my man Dark Lord Mac, and as always, I love playing against this guy, and I looking forward to fighting against him in a rematch. That's good to do for this one, you guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is always appreciated. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news on this channel. That's good to do for this one, you guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.